Всем привет!
Hi, everybody.
Yaroslav Babin.
My name is Yaroslav Babin. I'll be moderating this session where we'll discuss why email gets attacked, how to secure it, what techniques and approaches are used by the hackers, and how to prevent them from successfully getting at your employees.
Присутствует Vadim Shelest.
We have Vadim Shelest on stage with me today, the red team lead at Wildberries, then Vladimir Dubrovin of BK, the technical advisor on cybersecurity,
Sergey Iskhakov
of Promsvyazbank, head of computer incident response analysis and automation,
Nikolay Buyanov
of Tinkoff, head of infrastructure security. Last but not least, Dmitry Tsarev of BI.ZONE, head of cloud security solutions. All right. Our data shows that email is usually the starting point for all attacks in 92% of cases. Then you have messengers, SMS messages, but email is still in the lead. So targeted attacks at companies usually start with your inbox as well. Let's discuss the main threats in email, what you are seeing in real life, what the most popular attacks are, and how difficult they are or easy they are to deploy. Nikolay, anything from you? Yes, I'll speak about the situation at Tinkoff, the bank, and there are two threat vectors as we see them. The two main challenges is that everything that comes at us goes to endpoints automatically. We don't know what attachments there are, if there is malware or phishing links. And equally important, also serious threat is the outbound email communication. We don't know what our users send. You can address this differently. Why do you need to control what your own users send? This is about maturity. We have banking privileges, confidentiality, personal data. An employee can collect these data and send them out. We need to control this as well as a channel. Otherwise, they would be published on some data leaks, enjoying a spectacular failure, which is not good. What do hackers want, usually? Trying to encrypt your data or get some data out of you. Inbound or outbound? Inbound, yes. Incoming mail splits 50%. 50% is just spam, trash, and our tiered defense system can filter this out. In case of phishing, they use different techniques and try to deliver malicious payloads to us. Some malware from the outside. Another major issue here is trying to steal credentials or account data. These are the two main threats that we've seen. Maybe colleagues have something to add. Sergey? Yeah, hi. The two main vectors are the same for us. But then, if I were to speak about destructive impact from malware, encryption, for example, I think it has been declining. The most common thing is to deliver a dropper to try and get a foothold in our infrastructure. I think that's the main attack. What other protections or defenses do you use? What's your threat model? A phishing email with some attachment, right? But what else can happen generally? Well, here's the deal. It doesn't have to be a proper phishing email. These can be business attacks, as we call them. For example, as Nikolay mentioned as well, the bad actors are trying to acquire your credentials at some stage, get access to email, but then they sit tight, waiting out for a good moment to integrate themselves into mail threads and just ask for something when it's opportune. Dmitry? Yeah, I'd like to make a distinction. There are things that are threatening by volume, blanket spam, blanket phishing, that's not targeted, aimed at multiple users and organizations. Even within your company, this can be a mass mail to many recipients on the chance that someone clicks on it. And another part is something that's more complex. These are targeted attacks that can be business email compromise, as Sergey just said, for example. And the techniques there use sleeper domains, delayed impact or activation after infiltrating your perimeter. And there can be different defenses based on this distinction. Mass attacks can rely on baselines and statistics. You see spam waves or some phishing mass mails, and you just cut it short at this stage. More sophisticated, targeted attacks are more challenging, more interesting to defend against. And it's one of the key vectors for us now. Dmitry? Dim?
Достаточно частые атаки, которые можно наблюдать, это когда идет целенаправленная атака на людей, имеющих доступ к финансам, например,
attacks aimed at people who have access to finance,
под видом счета от
invoices, payments. There can be some fabricated invoice that contains a Trojan virus with the view to hack the account and then attack other partners in sequence. It's a real email, it's based on your previous mailing. It's really easy to fall for it, open the attachment and execute a Trojan. And these can be really long chains, actually. Dozens of hacked organizations in a chain. So they hack your partners, your counterparties. They study the emails, trying to mask themselves or pose as a legitimate person. So it's deliberate, targeted, and long-term. Yeah. They are in the loop and they follow the context, posing as your actual partner. Let me recap or summarize. I'm from a red team, and 90% of first access in our red team exercises or pen tests is indeed phishing. And email compromise, supply chain attacks, getting credentials, that applies as well. Red team seeks to use malicious malware attachments to get remote access. It's low cost, high gain, and it's easy, especially when you need to get your foot in the door. What do you usually send in your audits or pen tests? We have very different payloads, but we try to use the most popular and relevant things at the moment. We look at what's out there, build our defenses against that, and then audit it so that people know what attacks can happen. Well, an email needs to be tailored, and it's opened by a human. You know, someone needs to pull the trigger, as they say. And there are human vulnerabilities as well. People can be curious, people can be fearful, and even if a mail is misaddressed, someone who gets too curious can click it just to see what's inside. That's how you get first access to certain workstations, expand within the organization, and move from that. Do you use human vulnerabilities? That's a great vector, I agree, especially if you have access to an archive of payroll. Some accountants can CC all a common mistake, and that's a great honeypot. People want to see their colleagues pay. That's something to exploit. I wanted to add to this, yeah. Like, using the human nature is a major factor. There is a large phishing campaign on social media, not on email, where a spoofed manager writes to you on Telegram and asks for something very urgently to some random email. Yeah, that happens as well. There are the HLDN's principles that everybody's aware of, where you make people do something against their will or against their reason, and bad actors use those as well. So, as security, we need to make sure that the users are prepared. Then you have account-based attacks. Email is public-facing, but then if you can get login and password for that, then it's very bad. User passwords are weak, and they use single password for all things. If it leaks, gets compromised somewhere else, then you get access to everything. Or you are not protected against brute force attacks in some other system. Your user can be brute forced, and then this password will be used to access your organization. Sergey? I enjoyed your remark on fears. I support that fully. We've seen a number of cases where attackers fashioned their attack emails after something legitimate, saying that they had some tax arrears, unpaid taxes, some company being registered in their name. We've had this in the news recently, with bloggers especially. So this is an entry point for a person to get afraid of something bad happening to them. Triggering further steps is something that's very relevant.
Когда пришел ковид, были всплески писем различных рассылок, связанных с ковидом, потому что тема актуальна, популярна для всех.
Different phishing attacks during the COVID time. Everybody opened their emails just to learn the new information about new potential contagions, or maybe something changed in the country, maybe some new rules or laws that you have to get a QR code, and only with QR code you'll be able to get inside some different companies, or maybe go to a restaurant. And this happens all the time. There is something in the media, some hype topic, everybody starts talking about this. And based on this new hyped idea, we have a lot of new phishing attacks. And it's quite easy and simple to create and to exploit. And the more relevant, the higher the probability that somebody on the other side would just open an email just to verify something. Thank you, colleagues, for your comments and sharing your experience. Now, what do you see more often? Some targeted, tailored attacks at your companies, or maybe some mass send out 20,000 emails, and those hackers try to send it everywhere, or maybe they try to forge your signatures, maybe to create a similar email which looks like your email, but just one symbol is off. What kind of experience do you have? Most of the spam and phishing, what we have is just mass email, 5,000 people with emails, and they just send potential phishing attack to that email. It doesn't really matter if they work or not on that specific person. Targeted attacks are very rare. In most cases, those are big companies. And hackers try to just try to use volume. They try to mass send out those emails. Somebody would open this phishing email and somebody else would not be able to respond in time, and they would be able to just to get hold inside the infrastructure. Here's a different side of the coin. It depends on the people. When we are talking about the security, we can use some tools, or we can talk to people, we can educate them, talk to them about phishing attacks. I would like to share our experience. It's a little bit different. In our case, what we see is that we have a lot of targeted attacks. Angles of attacks are the same, just as you mentioned. But why? Why do we see these tailored targeted attacks? And the reason is, when we are talking this mass sendouts or some typical attacks, there are so many of them that we had to put a few lines of defense, and they are just eliminated at those automatic security, automatic protection level. So we just don't see them. So I think you should pay attention to the maturity of the security in a company. And the picture, depending on that level of maturity, would vary greatly. Sergey, don't you have a lot of false positives then if you have too many solutions that are blocked automatically? Maybe users complain about this kind of approach? Well, we haven't seen like a lot of complaints. There were some single complaints, but not too many. I can speak about Mail.ru and our cloud solutions. Obviously, we have anti-spam, and mass send-out is really hard to do, unless it's some compromised or maybe major organizations were compromised that send out, that had this kind of mass send-outs. That is why only targeted attacks work. And just to sum it up, we use whaling or spear phishing, where instead of one target, we have those whose access we really need. And to prepare for this social engineering, we spend a lot of time, we thoroughly prepare, we collect information about our targets on social media, we use OSINT, open source intelligence, we create a profile of each recipient, and based on their interests, we prepare potential solutions. So, for example, we had a top manager who spoke at different interfaces, and it was very easy to get there, asking him to take part in a conference or maybe to listen to an interesting conversation. So it's quite easy if you just look at the pictures on social media. If they have a corgi and they like or even love their pets, this is what we used in one of our red team pen tests. Dmitry, you also have cloud solutions and you monitor, you work with a classical bank with lots of mass sendouts. Well, it's the same, just like Sergey mentioned. You cut off mass sendouts with phishing at the first line, but it's also part of the statistics. This way or the other way, you don't have to react or respond to that, but it's also part of the statistics. Yeah, it's some kind of noise. On our part, we see more mass spam, mass phishing, like this, basically AOE bombing or cover bombing, just to cover the volume without caring about an individual target. And if we have this kind of protection, we know that they have specific ports installed on the perimeter and they stick outside. And we have specific tools that monitor that. When we have thousands of users in our organization, each of them is a potential angle of attack. And Vadim just mentioned that there are some people who, let's say, you can use them and to escalate your privileges, or maybe you can get a foothold in the company, or maybe you can get some sensitive information from their emails. It's important not to make any noise here, so that other methodology would not block this activity.
Вот. И здесь интересный вопрос по поводу
So here is another question
сегментирования различных групп
about the segmentation of different user groups and placing different,
проверок. То есть там стоит ли проверять почту,
let's say, tags on them. Maybe somebody should,
почту какого-нибудь офиса.
maybe top management emails should be checked more thoroughly compared to some common engineers. And if they should be more stricter, how much stricter? What would be the procedure? Or maybe just the opposite. Maybe they should not be double-checked because the price of delivering or non-delivering a message from top management would cost dearly the whole company. Maybe they should be checked even manually. Maybe they should not be checked automatically.
Сергей, вот ты говоришь, что у вас довольно много целевых атак.
Sergey, you said that you have a lot of targeted attacks. What should be done in order to bypass security measures so that their email would look as legitimate as possible? Well, in this case, the main ways to dissolve are to forge the sender. Clearly, our colleagues from the red team or hackers use OSINT, open source intelligence. They study our partners and they try to mimic them. They try to mimic their behavior. And one of the Achilles feet, one of the Achilles heels in this case, of any email service is that a business starts to ask to believe some of their partners, to decrease the tests, so that, for example, this partner should not be double-checked and this partner should be checked just a little bit, and this is a big problem for security. Another thing is that there could be a link inside the link, and the first link is absolutely okay, but then there will be a different link, a second link, and if there is nothing wrong with the first link, none of the lines would be able to detect the problem. And if they have to go deeper, if they have to go to the second line, to the first, to the second link, to the third link, then we don't have this kind of solutions, and it's a big problem. When speaking about partners, I think we should have a dedicated track on how we trust our partners and how safe are those partners, because it's not just about emails. But if we're talking about emails, then there are cases where there's some old email would come up again, it looked legitimate, but now we can see that there is something wrong here. They start working with links, and actually there was an interesting case with links. During the last year, there were QR codes, and we basically cannot protect our users because there is a picture, we do not detect it, it's not a malware, it's not a link, and obviously they just scan it with their phone, and we do not understand where their data leaks. And it was one of the interesting cases, which was quite prevalent before, but now it's a little bit less so. Now people use Telegram more. And I would like to tell you more about the attacker's point of view. How do we bypass those? A great angle of attack would be to use a link to some kind of cloud service with malware. This would be a trusted subdomain of some provider. They have all the necessary information, and it depends on the payload, how it goes through the sandbox, and there are different ways. One of the interesting ways, a new one, when we mimicked our web server for the cloud service of one of the cloud service providers, we added different security measures for capture and anti-bot from all the automated sandboxes, so that they could not use this link to access it. And then the whole link of different ways to bypass it. Speaking about bypassing the human factor, well, there could be a mature company and they have awareness, people know what kind of angle attacks could be used, and we usually mix different ways to insert it. For example, email, or maybe we come as potential client, we ask for price, we work with conditions, then we try to escalate to the top management, and it seems like a legitimate correspondence. It takes time, but it works great. Then you can mix it with wishing, you can use different calls. So it's a comprehensive scenario which takes time to prepare, but in the end, it provides a real results. We get through and we get our results. Speaking about mobile users, do you have some malware for them, only for PC? Are there anything for mobile users, or they are basically non-existent? Well, let me answer. It's actually a very good angle of attack because mobile solutions, mobile devices are not covered with company security, and it actually works very well in terms of QR codes, SMS phishing. SMS phishing is one of the very, very few trusted ways. Maybe people really trust SMS messages and they just trust it by default, and it works great. I would like to add that there are mobile applications, and these applications have their own vulnerabilities. So whatever is on that link can bring about the vulnerability for the whole mobile device just in general, and I think it's quite normal. Last year, we saw different attacks on specific mail programs. There was a mail vulnerability, and those vulnerabilities were exploited. And then, by using this vulnerability, they get data from the workstations. I think it's safe to say that PC uses more often, but not always it's about emails. Usually it's just when you go through the web pages and you leave a link there. I think it depends on the target and the goal. For example, an employee has a mobile device, and if we want to get hold of that device, if we want to just to work there, then usually it's not very interesting just to work in that mobile device. But if we want to use this as a foothold and get somewhere else, then it could be very interesting. It's also interesting to see how much would it cost and how much would it bring, because you can spend infinite amount of money, time, technology, but you would not get anything in return. So when we are talking about a specific goal, when there is no mass benefit, then using very targeted, complex phishing is not used because it's not worth it, unless it's not something else, it's not motivated by some non-monetary by some non-monetary things. Yes, obviously, if we are talking about the complexity, it's very important. And currently, users are ready to, are accustomed to download APK from untrusted sources, and not everybody has antivirus on their mobile devices. And you can also get sensitive correspondence from different messengers. So we can use those mobile devices and they can be exploited. Just to sum it up, yes, there are attacks, there are a lot of attacks. They try to mimic, to look like it's a real deal. And there are also many attacks, spams, phishing attacks, whaling attacks, when hackers try to cover it with volume. If some company does not have a great security system, they can potentially bypass it. Now let's move to security and discuss what and how it should be protected. What does your configuration look like? What kind of lines do you use? How do you counteract spam and so on? Nikolay? As I said, the security has two components, the technical side and the awareness. We have to work with people, we have to explain them all the time what phishing attacks are. First, we have to build the lines, security lines, and we have to work with a single vendor. We should have multiple different sandboxes, but we do understand that those security measures are not ideal. If we want it to be effective, then we can add spam, we can add OCR, we can have spam detection, phishing detection. Those are acceptable, those are available and not very expensive. Next, when we are talking about incoming channel, what else can we do here? When we're talking about specific users, the recipients, the main problem here is that if we did not see a phishing email, they would end up on some email box on some device. We could have an EDR security and see the whole telemetry of a device, maybe some kind of potentially suspicious activity. Or we could use independent containers where an email is opened not on the workstation or not on the device, but some independent network. And even if there is some kind of phishing attack, they will be able to rework and reopen as a single, as a dedicated container. And I will talk about awareness later. I would like to add a few words here. And let's try and take a different look at. Let's take a different perspective. Obviously, building lines is the correct approach. The more lines we have, then the more comprehensive approach and the higher the probability that the security would be intact. However, when there is an attack, we already mentioned that it must be worth the efforts. When we are talking about the main business communication channel, and when we consider the costs on those lines, they also should be reasonable and should be justifiable. And different companies have different levels. Obviously, everybody is now different geography. They need to develop. Obviously, they use mobile devices too. So my point here is the number of lines and this kind of approach should correspond to your whole business. Maybe some businesses cannot afford these many lines. If you don't have enough budget, or you have to solve it right here, right now, Maybe your task right now is to protect the communication channel via email, but you don't have any control over email. Well, for example, our colleagues, maybe they bought some kind of license and they use this email on a third-party service. Well, you trust them, but you don't have any control over it. Nobody would give you 100% guarantee. Just as Nikolay said, if you cannot protect there, you have to have a single endpoint. And at that endpoint, well, you have to provide host defensive measures for all endpoints. Though it's not always possible. First of all, it's expensive. Second of all, it's oftentimes mobile, and that's a problem. So what could we do here? If you cannot protect endpoints, if you cannot work with immune containers, all that takes money. Well, you can have a different solution. For example, you already have a dropper, and they try to install a connect to the outside. Maybe you can try and detect, work with a sandbox, or maybe to monitor with proxy on using NGFF. With this kind of approach, very dedicated approach, stage after stage, step after step, this would be my recommendation on what should be done, on what should be used and how should you protect yourself. Just to sum it up, we have the threat model, what we want to protect from, and we have the worth of data, what we are protecting. If this threat model and data worth allow us to have multiple sandboxes, different antiviruses, and cover everything with agents and some additional tools, then it's worth it. I would like to say that as attackers, as red team, what we do, when we prepare our social, during our social meeting or social part, we analyze the company, we see what can they do to counteract it, and basically we play cat and mice. We look for potential ways to bypass it. How do we bypass this sandbox? How do this email react to certain keywords in the body of the message? And just as an example, a few days ago, I was told a very interesting situation. The text itself is formulated such where it tells them that they have to bypass awareness, they have to pass awareness training. It's a fake mail, which leads to a fake web page where they have to leave their credentials. And when preparing for this, we take into account and we use even this kind of approach. Well, you never know. There could be a custom solution. Maybe the information security people can do this. There is no 100% guarantee. You are correct. It can be very difficult to collect this information. We can use social media. We can see potential solutions for maybe some vendors deploy and say that they use this and that solution. But as you're saying, there is no 100% guarantee. We were working with a wishing scenario. We said that we are vendors and we asked what kind of solutions do you use. We want to propose you some solution and we wanted to get this information. It's not always possible to do so. And even our Tinkoff colleague says that they have 3 sandboxes. Not always you can get the correct way to bypass them. Well, Yaroslav, we are talking about major business that has enough money to build this security. If we are talking about some middle-level organization that they have their own mail service, they maybe have Thunderbird, maybe we can try to protect this kind of middle-of-the-pack organization, not just some big company that has enough money. Yes, but what about the awareness? Employees should not know what to do with, well, how to work with phishing. They should not. Well, for example, if we're talking about an accountant should know how to count money, not to open or not to open different phishing attacks? Well, first of all, I disagree. They should at least understand at some general view that they have potentially dangerous emails, and they should know this. What do? We have quite a big anti-phishing campaign in our company. We speak about the different billboards and different mass send out, that it could be via Telegram. You should double check your contacts. You should be aware of QR codes, of links, and we try to cover all the potential internal resources to demonstrate our users that it's possible to be secure. Second point is that it's internal phishing. When we emulate attacks with our resources, we basically forge our own signatures, we create something that's identical to what we have inside, and we make this phishing attack. If you want to sign your vacation, you have to go to this website, and they use this link, and they use their credentials there, and they lose them. There are certain solutions here. First of all, it works, but what happens if it doesn't work? If users still get into their phishing attacks? If it happens for the second time, all their incoming email gets onto quarantine, and they cannot get any incoming mails until they pass their additional education. And next, they have additional test attacks, and if they have this email and go to the information security department and they tell the InfoSec people that they had phishing attacks, then it actually works, because we had people who were trained and who become better and who brought those emails and told them, okay, I have this potentially dangerous email, and our metric here would be 100% of internal phishing attacks would come back to us with our employees who would tell us, yes, this is a phishing attack email, and I should not open this. I would like to add a few words that awareness is great, but when we are trying to educate an accountant that they also should change their approach, I would say it's a little bit ineffective in terms of 100% solutions, not really a silver bullet. What we should do instead is that the same accountant, if they have some problems, if they believe that this could be a dangerous email, so that she should not be afraid to go there to the department, and she should not be afraid to ask. It's very difficult to create this kind of atmosphere. Not always users understand the importance of these phishing attacks. Not always they understand those different points. You can describe them and people could understand, but they still do not use. So building this culture takes time. And human face security is a great concept, and we use it in our company, for example. We create specific conditions for users where they are not fearful for asking for help. They are not afraid to go to the information security department and ask if they are doing everything correctly. If somebody has some problems, they can just go there and they can ask, I have this email and I'm not sure. Obviously, you cannot create instantly, but you should work in this area.
So you don't agree with Yaroslav, right? No, I agree with him, but I've expanded on what he said. I'd like to add something as well. In banks, people, the users, still cannot differentiate us from internal financial security, and they're fearful. So it's a lot of effort to showcase our department as something helpful. You spoke a lot to awareness, different phishing mails and so on. Why not mark each incoming email? Just insert a PSA in every email. It can be really helpful. And then you can add a button in your email client to forward a suspicious mail to security. Again, another technical solution, very effective. So, there is some malicious mailing, right? Who cares if just 1% of the users clicked on it, or 30% of users? If it's just one person, then your awareness efforts have failed. It's a yes or no logic, binary. Opened or not opened. And all you can do is continuously drive down the number of gullible users. Yeah, agree. Sorry to interject. I fully agree. Just one person clicking some link is enough to get initial access. People just missed their awareness training, or they didn't pay much attention to it, just clicked through their tests. They have a lot on their plate, potentially, other things to attend to, so they don't know why they would need that as well. So initial access can be gained through one person. Yeah. So it's not foolproof, right? Just an addition. If it's a mass mail, more likely than not, you know about it already. And you can see who clicked the links and start from there. The binary yes or no logic is good, but then there is fuzzy logic as well. You cannot build proper security on awareness alone. If you try to rely on awareness exclusively, you might be professionally incompetent, actually. But to counter your point, and what Vadim has said, as an attacker, as a red hat, it's not as important if it's just one person or 100 people. But then you have response times as a metric. Someone can click the link or open an attachment. In the next moment, the person can realize that something had happened, and if they're not afraid to report it, that something has happened to their computer, then the situation can still be remedied. So if you don't do anything, you won't get anything. Awareness is a requirement. It's not just some thin air. Well, and it advertises your department as people who want to defend our company together with you. It's your cover, right? It's not your brand, it's your cover. It's not about being there to defend your organization, because our people at Tinkoff, at least the way we want to make it, our people are all engaged in cybersecurity. Everybody needs to contribute. And with that mindset, people see security as a shared cause. To this point, the benefits of awareness are not limited to countering email attacks, decreasing the probability of a successful attack. Awareness campaigns can be framed as something useful for the employees themselves, because this happens in your daily life as well, of your job. The families may be targeted, and it's just a good practice to explain to people that it's not just some knowledge that they'll use 9 to 5. Off the job, this will improve their safety and security as well. Right. Let's speak about some trends. Are there innovative breakthrough defenses on the market, or this all comes back to anti-spam behavior tracking, basic checks, ranking domains by reputation? Are there any cool new things? Vladimir? If this is a question about technologies, we have defenses against MIT-me attacks. It's a whole separate subject that we don't have time for, but do read up on that. Look at plaintext considered obsolete, where you ban any transfer of any password openly, so your web server should be configured to prevent that. And then there is another big area where you protect your traffic in between servers. If you deep dive into that, you'll see how horrible this is set up currently, whereas it could be quite simple. So LSRPT, LSTLS, DAME, all other standards that are being implemented at varying degrees of success are there to prevent man-in-the-middle attacks. These are more sophisticated, so this is something that you'll arrive at as you get more mature, obviously. I can pick this up. Apart from SPF, remark, and other exercises, other techniques, we have signature-based and statistics-based filters. There are various AI-powered solutions that can go as far as evaluating the tone of an email, tone of voice. This is about emotions that usually accompany calls to action. And this circles back to human exploits that we brought up today as well, based on fears and so on. So these systems rank or score emails based on these new metrics. Conversely, there is a lot of development in LLMs, so potentially will outsource some part of human communication to LLMs that will serve as the initial point of contact. Attackers will potentially do that as well, trying to get some information out of your employees. GPT-4o, for example, looks promising, but you never know if it'll get dumber. Defenses will need to rely on LLMs as well, so that initial interaction is between robots. They'll hash it out, and then humans can get involved. We have this for calls, actually, right? For voice. You call someone, and you talk to a robot picks up. So in other channels, this can happen as well. Robots versus robots. Yeah, we can make our voice call assistant, Alec, an email assistant as well. Yeah, I'd like to a share of that. I'm going to push for red teaming and pen tests. You need to include this in all your offensive exercises. This is always a potential vector. And then there are defensive solutions that drive automation for pen testers. In particular, in social engineering, different payloads, different packages, links, attachments. I think this is where the future is, where you can automate a lot of human work just by buying a subscription. You can cover a lot of ground with these automated tests. I think that's the next step in the evolution of social and technical stages of Ventus. Okay, thank you. We have a few questions still, but we are running out of time. So let's take some questions from the audience. Here is the first one. How do you protect yourself against a dangerous email propagating itself within the company? For example, an accountant receives a mail, care of the head accountant, the sender was trusted, and it can slip through and get forwarded to a top manager. Any takers? This is about both monitoring your incoming and outgoing mail. If you do not monitor your internal correspondence on your server, then you wouldn't learn about the situation. So these things are needed. Then if you're monitoring certain vectors, if you see some suspicious access, you'll be able to track the whole chain. These are business email compromise attacks that are the most interesting and challenging because they do model real correspondence, and the fallout from such attacks can be severe.
Следующий вопрос. Как защитить почту сотрудников,
how do you protect your employees' email if their job includes receiving a lot of mail from unknown senders, like HR, sales, and so on? Assume that's incoming from the outside. Guaranteeing everything? Again, you need lines in your defense. We have a lot of counterparties, we get a lot of emails from them. You cannot stop that. Our company is constantly hiring, so you can migrate to another solution from email. Give an alternative platform like a portal where you can upload data and files. Upload your documents via this link to some platform that we offer. That's going to be more secure. That's one of the alternatives. Otherwise, you just have awareness and lines of defense. I think this is about filtering of data. You can block potentially malicious attachments. If someone needs to use macros and other things like that, then you need to prove this. Then international colleagues are currently using browser isolation a lot, that's or unknown links, where they open in some isolated space of your workstation. Then you can harden your endpoint to the nth degree. At least include a warning if the link is outside of the whitelist. Each email from the outside gets this warning. No, I mean, once you click the link, you'd have this forwarding page with all the warnings, and this actually works. Then there was a question about the minimum set of defenses against zero-day attacks. I think we've just addressed this. Hardening endpoint protection lines of defense, the more the merrier. I think the minimum threshold is to close off your mail server from open web. Add some layers. What if you cannot use a VPN and you cannot technically secure it? Anything else other than awareness? If you cannot technically secure it, if you cannot use a VPN, well, what else is there? You can use email service providers who do this effectively. They have the technical capabilities to do that, and they get paid to do that. A lot of providers use segregation of responsibility, infrastructure, configuration, vulnerabilities. Most cloud providers take over all that. If you don't have the technical capability to protect your email server, just stop using it. I think you can use mutual TLS, authentication with client certificate, or any other 2FA. This can be implemented. But then it's worse if you use regular email clients, because they don't offer pretty much anything other than a password. These need to be tokens generated on the outside. These cannot be user passwords.
Спасибо.
Okay, thank you.
Последний вопрос. Какая статистика по переходу
The last question. What statistics do you have on
от общего числа имейлов
click-through rates
компаний в противовес
where you haven't had awareness
Есть у вас какая-то стата?
versus pre-trained users?
47-50% снижает.
I think the reduction is up to 50%. This might not sound like a lot, but these are first results from one of our recent awareness campaigns. I have some stats. I did social and technical testing back in 2018-2019, so this is not as relevant, but when we did this for the first time, if it was a mass email to all users, that would be around 1,500 people. 40% clicked the link the first time around. Then, once they've taken all the trainings after 6 months, it went down to around 9%. So you need to do awareness. Okay. Now, you've flipped on this, right? Do you have any stats? Does this help? Does this help a lot? Our users are all properly trained, so I don't know. As for some regular person, abstract person, this should work, I guess, and that's great. I support Nikolay, because with each new stage in training and awareness, you see fewer and fewer clicks, and more people report freely to information security. It's a continuous process, because people tend to forget things like that, and it's like a loop. Vadim, you are the purple team at Wildberries. Basically, you do social and technical tests, right? What's the situation with that? Yeah, right. The trend is going down. I'm not sure that this is a representative metric, because just one initial access is one too many. I think it's good prep work. If people have been through awareness training several times, they respond properly to basic attacks, then we come up with new scenarios. Because it's a race, like hide and seek, and we try to come up with new techniques to improve our defenses further. All right, we've run out of time. We've covered the basics of how to come up with a threat model for your mail. We mentioned mass mailing attacks and targeted attacks as well, where an industry or your company becomes the mark. We've discussed about lines of defense, how and why to do that. Who needs to be responsible for that? We discussed awareness training. It works, even if it doesn't eliminate the risk entirely. And then we've discussed some trends. We've had Vadim Shelest of Wildberries, Vladimir Dubrovin of BK, Sergey Iskhakov of Promsvyazbank. We've had Nikolay Buyanov of Tinkoff, Dmitry Tsarev of BI.ZONE, and yours truly, Yaroslav Babin of Positive Technologies.